Welcome back to Easy English Girl Talk. We're so glad you're here for some listening and speaking practice. Hey everyone, welcome to Easy English Girl Talk. We're here to help you practice your listening and speaking skirms with some fun conversations.
Hi, I'm Leah. I'm Brazilian. I've seen every episode of Friends at least 7 times, and I'm not even a little bit sorry about it. Hi, I'm Emma. I'm American, and last weekend I canceled plans with real humans to rewatch Gilmore Girls. Again, real humans, like actual people who wanted to spend time with you. Yes, real people. And I said no because Lorelai and Rory needed me more. Well, wait, I respect that. And you're watching Easy English Girl Talk, the podcast where two friends talk about real stuff in English. No textbook, no grammar drills, just real conversations, real opinions, and today, real obsessions. Because today we're talking about comfort shows. Those TV series that you have already seen, you know how they end, you know every plot twist, every breakup, every dramatic moment, and you still press play again and again and again. Why do we do that? Why do millions of people around the world keep going back to the same shows from the 90s and 2000s? That's exactly what we're going to talk about. We're talking about Friends, Gossip Girl, Sex and the City, Gilmore Girls, One Tree Hill, The Big Bang Theory, the shows that shaped a whole generation. And if you already have a favorite character from any of these shows, stay until the end because we're going to argue about some of them, and I have strong opinions. She really does. Okay, we have to start with Friends because I think for most people this is the ultimate comfort show. It really is. 6 friends, 1 coffee shop, 10 seasons, and somehow, even though it ended in 2004, people are still watching it every single day. I started watching Friends when I was in high school in Brazil, with subtitles, obviously. And it was actually one of the reasons I wanted to learn English because I wanted to understand the jokes without reading the bottom of the screen. That's actually the best motivation to learn a language. Not a test, not a job, just wanting to understand Chandler's sarcasm in real time. Exactly. And speaking of Chandler, can we talk about how he is literally the funniest character in television history? Yes, he's funny because he uses humor to hide his feelings. And honestly, that's very relatable. So relatable. When things get uncomfortable, just make a joke. That's basically my survival strategy. But I need to confess, my favorite was always Monica because she's competitive, she's organized, she's a little bit controlling, and maybe I look a little like her. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm confessing this here. A little bit controlling? Okay. Very controlling. But she also cares so much and she works incredibly hard. And the apartment, she was the heart of that group. Everything happened around Monica's apartment. That's true. But I love you, Emma, even though you're a little crazy like Monica. So, we need to talk about the Ross and Rachel story. Because I feel like every person in the world has an opinion about, were they on a break? Oh, we're not opening that discussion because we'll be here for 3 hours. Wow, fine. But for the record, but they were on a break. Noted. But what I think makes Friends a comfort show is this. It's not about the plot. Nobody rewatches Friends for the suspense. You rewatch it because it feels like spending time with people you love. You know what's going to happen, and that's exactly why it feels safe. That's a beautiful point. You don't rewatch comfort shows to be surprised. You rewatch them to feel something familiar, like a warm blanket on a cold day. Do you remember the final episode when they all leave the keys on the counter in Monica's apartment? I cried every single time. I've seen that finale probably 5 times, and I cry every time because it felt like saying goodbye to real friends. I can't watch the last episode. I watched it only once, and that was enough for me. I always watch Friends, but never the last episode again. But that's the power of a comfort show. The characters become part of your life, and you always go back to them. Okay, from one New York show to another, let's talk about Gossip Girl. Gossip Girl is interesting because it's completely unrealistic. Teenagers wearing designer clothes, going to galas, having business meetings. And yet, people love it because it's not about the realism. It's about the fantasy. Gossip Girl made you dream about a life that was dramatic, glamorous, and full of secrets, even if you knew it was ridiculous. And the fashion, can we talk about the fashion? Blair Waldorf's outfits are still referenced today. Headbands became a whole thing because of her. Blair is one of the best characters ever written because she's complicated, she's mean sometimes, she's insecure, she's ambitious, and she's incredibly loyal to the people she loves. She feels real even inside a completely unreal world. And Chuck Bass. Love him or hate him, he's iconic. The I'm Chuck Bass energy is something people still quote. The Blair and Chuck relationship was toxic and beautiful at the same time. And we all watched every episode knowing it was a mess. And we didn't care. We really didn't. And I love Chuck Bass. This is my toxic side, I confess. Sue me. And what about Sex and the City? That's one of my comfort shows, too. We're talking about New York shows with incredible fashion and women figuring out life. So we definitely need to talk about Sex and the City. Sex. That was funny, Emma, but who doesn't love Chuck Bass? And yes, Sex and the City changed everything. 4 women talking openly about relationships, sex, career, friendship, aging, independence in the late 90s. That was revolutionary. Carrie, Charlotte, Miranda, and Samantha. Every woman I know identifies with at least one of them. I'm a Carrie with Miranda tendencies. Creative, emotional, but also practical and a little cynical when I'm tired. Wow, that's very specific and very accurate. I think I'm a Charlotte who secretly admires Samantha's confidence. Charlotte, it really anyway looks like I always thought you would be Miranda, but it's okay if you say so. But that's what made that show so powerful. Women saw themselves in those characters, their doubts, their mistakes, their desires, and it told them it's okay to want things. It's okay to not have your life figured out at 30 or 40 or ever. And Mr. Big, the ultimate love story or the ultimate red flag? Both. Absolutely both. And that's what made it interesting. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was messy and complicated and real. Even with all the designer shoes. And just for the record, I never thought Adam was a viable option for Carrie. People still rewatch Sex and the City because the conversations feel relevant. The topics they discussed in 1999 are still the topics women discuss today. Because friendship, self-worth, love, independence, those things don't expire. Okay, quick pause. We're about to talk about Gilmore Girls, One Tree Hill, and Big Bang Theory. So if you're a fan of any of those, you're going to want to stay. But first, can I be honest? When has that ever stopped you? Fair. So if you're enjoying this conversation, if you've been nodding or thinking about your favorite episodes, hit subscribe. Think of it like adding us to your comfort show rotation. We're in new episodes every week, no spoilers, and zero drama. Well, a little drama. Okay, a little drama, but the good kind. Also, drop a comment and tell us which show on this list is your number one comfort show. We genuinely want to know. It takes 2 seconds, or less time than it takes Ross to say, we were on a break. All right, back to the shows. Okay, Gilmore Girls, this is my show. This is my emotional territory. I can tell your entire face changed because Gilmore Girls is not just a show. It's a feeling. It's autumn leaves and small town streets and drinking way too much coffee and talking really fast about books and movies and life. Absolutely. And Lorelai and Rory have the best mother-daughter relationship in TV history. It's funny, it's honest, it's complicated, and it's full of love. And Stars Hollow, that little town feels like a place you actually want to live, with Luke Steiner and Miss Patty and Kirk doing something weird every episode. Kirk is comedic gold every single scene. But here's the thing about Gilmore Girls as a comfort show. It's cozy. The rhythm is warm. The dialogue is clever, but not stressful. Nothing terrible happens for most of the episodes. It's just life, conversations, food, books, love. That's it. And that's exactly why people rewatch it in the fall. Every year, with coffee and a blanket. It's become a ritual. You just described my fall ritual, Leah. Gilmore Girls is my favorite TV series during this time of year, always. And with a hot coffee to go with it, obviously. Now, the important question, Jess, Dean, or Logan? Team Jess, always. He was the only one who truly understood Rory as a person. He loved her mind, not just her image. See, I go back and forth. When I was younger, I loved Dean because he was safe and sweet. Then I liked Logan because he was fun and exciting. But now, as an adult, Jess, because he grew up. He became a better version of himself, and he did it on his own, without Rory. That's character development. And that's also why we rewatch. Because every time you watch a show at a different age, you see different things. Your favorite character might change. Your perspective shifts. At 16, I thought Lorelai was funny. At 25, I realized she was also running from her problems. So at 30, I understood why. That's the beauty of rewatching. You grow, and the show grows with you. The story stays the same, but you're different. Okay, now let's talk about One Tree Hill, because this show doesn't get enough credit. One Tree Hill is the most underrated comfort show on this list. People who love it really love it, like deeply, because it grew with you. It started as a high school basketball drama, and by the end, it was about marriage, parenthood, careers, loss, identity. It literally grew up alongside its audience. Exactly. And the music on that show was incredible. Every episode felt like a music video for your emotions. Gavin DeGraw, The Cure, Jimmy Eat World. The soundtrack was basically the playlist of an entire generation. And the quotes. Peyton Sawyer's bedroom walls were covered in quotes and drawings. She made being emotional and artistic look powerful, not weak. And I think Brooke Davis had one of the best character arcs in television. She went from the popular party girl to this strong, independent woman who built her own company, and she did it without losing her heart. Brooke is incredible. And I also need to talk about Nathan and Haley. I'm in love with this couple. It's incredible to follow their journey with so many issues. Like Peyton says, people always leave versus people always come back. That's the emotional journey of the entire show in 2 sentences for all characters. This is so deeply... One Tree Hill is definitely a series with many layers, and I think people rewatch One Tree Hill because it reminds them of who they were when they first watched it. The music, the drama, the first love. It takes you right back to being 17. Nostalgia is a powerful thing, and comfort shows are basically nostalgia machines. Now let's switch the energy completely. The Big Bang Theory. This one is different from the other shows on the list. It's not romantic drama. It's not fashion. It's not emotional growth. It's just funny. And that's why it works as a comfort show. You don't need to think. You don't need to remember complex storylines. You just sit down and laugh. Like, Sheldon Cooper is one of the most recognizable characters in TV history. You can love him or find him annoying, but you cannot ignore him. His routines, his rules, his spot on the couch. There's something weirdly comforting about a character who needs everything to be exactly the same, because that's what comfort shows are about, things staying the same. That's such a good point. We rewatch shows because we want something predictable in a world that feels unpredictable. And The Big Bang Theory gave people 12 seasons of predictable laughs. Same apartment, same group of friends, same jokes about Sheldon not understanding sarcasm. And honestly, after a long, stressful day, sometimes you don't want deep emotional drama. Sometimes you just want to hear Sheldon knock on Penny's door 3 times and say her name. I always laugh a lot at these scenes. Knock, 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 Penny. Knock, 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 Penny. Knock, 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 Eddie. Penny. See, you smiled. You laugh. That's the whole point. So, we've talked about all these amazing shows, but let's actually answer the big question. Why do we rewatch them? Why do we choose something we've already seen instead of something new? I think the first reason is emotional safety. When you rewatch a show, you know nothing bad is going to surprise you. You already know who dies, who breaks up, who gets back together. There's no anxiety, no suspense, just comfort. And in a world that feels uncertain and stressful, your job, your relationships, the news, a comfort show is something you can control. Like, you choose when to press play, and you know exactly what you're going to feel. Yeah, and I think the second reason is nostalgia. These shows remind you of a specific time in your life. Friends reminds me of high school. Gossip Girl reminds me of college. And when I watch them, I'm not just watching the show, I'm visiting a version of myself. That's really beautiful. You're visiting a version of yourself. I feel that way about Gilmore Girls. It takes me back to the person I was when I first heard Lorelai talk about coffee. And the third reason, and I think this one is the most important, is connection. These characters feel like friends. You've spent hundreds of hours with them. You know their voices, their habits, their stories. Turning on a comfort show feels like calling an old friend. It's like you're not alone, even when you're alone. The characters keep you company. And that's why these shows are so powerful. They're not just entertainment. They're emotional companions. I read somewhere that people tend to rewatch shows more during difficult times when they're stressed, sad, going through a breakup, starting a new job, moving to a new city. That makes total sense because when everything around you is changing, you need something that stays the same. And Central Perk is always there. Stars Hollow is always there. Blair Waldorf is always judging someone. And Sheldon is always knocking 3 times. Always. These shows are not just old TV. They're part of our emotional history. They shaped how a whole generation thinks about friendship, love, independence, and growing up. And that's why they will never really get old. So if you're watching this and you have a comfort show, a show that you go back to whenever you need a hug from the universe, we get it. We do the same thing. And honestly, there's no guilt in rewatching. You're not wasting time. You're taking care of yourself. You're choosing something that makes you feel good, and that's valid. So here's what I want you to do. In the comments, tell us 2 things. What is your number 1 comfort show, and which character do you relate to the most? I'm genuinely curious, and I will read every single answer. She really will. She already has her opinions ready, and she's prepared to agree or fight. Lovingly fight, always lovingly. And if you enjoyed this conversation, if it made you smile or think or want to rewatch something tonight, please subscribe to Easy English Girl Talk. It makes a huge difference for us, and it means you'll never miss an episode. Every week, we bring a new conversation about real life, the kind of topics women actually care about: friendship, pop culture, relationships, confidence, money, self-care, career, body image, and everything in between. See you soon, everyone. Take care. And tonight, let yourself watch that one episode you've seen 100 times. You deserve it.